Hey everybody, Coach Julia here. We're going to talk today about finding the ideal overhead position in the jerk and a couple of drills that you can do to help you get there better. Here we go. Okay, so we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about footwork or foot positioning in this particular video. We're really focusing on the overhead. However, let's set it up. In my jerk, I need a split stance. Ideally, my front shin is vertical, meaning my knee is on top of my ankle. My back knee is bent with my heel up off the ground and I'm pushing weight into the ball of my foot. I should see my shoulders on top of my hips, hips on top of this back knee. And again, this knee is either right on top of my ankle or slightly back. My feet are about hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider. A slight toe in is okay on either one. Parallel is cool. Turned out, no. First thing I'm gonna do with athletes before we even pick up a bar is see if they can get overhead in a half kneeling position. This gives us an additional point of contact without a whole lot of low back arching and rib flare going on. So I'm gonna set them up with their arms overhead, and I want to see what happens. If this is what you're getting from athletes, we want to squeeze their butt, tuck your hip under, rib cage down so that everything stays stacked on top of this back hip. And then we're going to try to take that bar overhead so that it lines up on top of the shoulder girdle, right? We don't need it way back here because that's not stable, but out here doesn't work either. So we want to try to get the head through, the biceps in line with the ears, the bar situated over the shoulder girdle on top of the hip, hip on top of the back knee. Okay, let's talk about the grip for a second. When I'm holding a bar overhead, I don't want a neutral wrist. In a lot of cases, this might work, but remember, I have load that's now going to be pushing down, and I don't want that load pushing down here on my thumb. So I'm gonna shift my wrist back and just flex it a little bit. So now the weight is pushing down on the heel of my hand, which is now stacked over my wrist. Right, that weight would be pushing down onto my thumb, which doesn't have a whole lot of support. Here, it's gonna push down into the meaty part of my palm. Okay, next, if they can do that, they can get the bar overhead in this half kneeling position. I'm gonna have them press up and see if they can maintain their balance on that back leg and come back down. Up, we're just seeing if anything changed. So assuming you can keep the bar overhead, without a whole lot of weird archy things going on. Rib cage can stay down, it's on top of your hips, your legs stay bent. Now we're gonna start to add some behind the neck work. This is the easiest introduction because it's a straight line. We don't have to worry about getting around your head. It can just go straight up. Anytime I'm doing behind the neck work, I want to try to keep the elbow more or less under the bar. Right? If I'm here, the bar can go straight up. Once I start to do this, then that bar is going to have the tendency to go forward where I have a head. So when you get set up, let's find that external rotation of the shoulder, keep the ribs down, keep the hips tucked, and then you're going to try to press straight up from there. Next, we're going to add some dynamic movement with a behind the neck push press in that split position. Again, we're just learning how to transfer force from the legs upwards into the arms, and we're just building on that same nice straight bar path that we had from the shoulder to above the shoulder. That's all we're trying to do. The next version of this is going to be a behind the neck push jerk in that split stance. So all we're doing, you're already set in the split. The only thing you need to do is change direction, right? This is going to help an athlete feel how, yes, they use the legs to create a little bit of height on the bar, but then they have to change direction and get back down under it and land in a really, really balanced split stance. Okay. Lots going on with the legs. Before we leave this, let's talk about arm orientation. External rotation would be this. Me trying to rotate my elbow forward. Now what we can see happens is that that's gonna force me to turn my pinkies forward and the bar back behind me. So that doesn't seem super stable, right? Deep internal rotation would be the opposite, right? Where I rotate my elbows backwards, that's gonna move that bar out in front. Every athlete's gonna come into this with a preference anatomically for one or the other. We want to be neutral, right? So that means from here, I'm not intentionally trying to externally rotate, but I'm not internally rotating to a really far degree. So I want to find somewhere right in the middle. The pointy part of my elbow is gonna be pointed out to the side. Okay, so if you can do all of that, you have figured out the overhead position in the jerk. You've practiced it in a static position, you've added some dynamic stuff. The next step would be to start taking it around your head. It's a whole nother ballpark, but the behind the neck work is a really, really great way to start to introduce the appropriate overhead position in the jerk with relatively few variables for the athlete to try to figure out. Give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Subscribe, like, check out my Instagram for more content. See you next time.